Hello, everyone. Lisa Sabaniak here from lifelikeyoumeanit.com. And today I would like to do a spin-off series from the series that I've already done with you called Coping with Anxiety Tips. And I would like to do a new series on beating imposter syndrome. Now, the reason that this all came up is because while I was doing all of these 30 different videos of coping with anxiety, people were reaching out to me both in the comments, but also in direct messages, giving me lots of different stories, sharing their experiences with their anxiety and asking for further guidance. And it turns out that quite a number of them had something in common, which is imposter syndrome. And it turns out that imposter syndrome for these people was the number one source of their anxiety. So while all my tips for coping with anxiety were really, really helpful, they really found that they needed something very specific for fighting imposter syndrome. So I thought, why not start another series? So this series is going to be about 15 videos long, and we're going to do just that. We're going to tackle different strategies that you can undertake in order to beat imposter syndrome. Now, for those of you that don't know exactly what that is, it's basically those negative thoughts that we have churning around in our head that tell us we can't do it, we're not good enough, we shouldn't do it, we're not worthy, things along those lines, but they really get in our way. So for example, if we work for somebody else, we're sitting at our desk working diligently, and we're thinking all the time, even though we're getting praise from other people at work, we're having successes, we're reaching milestones, we're doing all the things that we need to do and want to do, we're actually thinking that somebody's going to find out that we're not the best person for the job, and there's 1,000 other people out there that could do this job so much better than us. Right? If you're self-employed, the same sort of thing. People aren't going to buy from you because there's other people out there that sell something similar and they're doing a way better job than you, that you don't know what you're talking about. And so people are going to see that and they're going to go running to someone else. This also comes up in our personal lives, though, in our family relationships, right? How we judge ourselves as mothers or stepmothers or parents in general, and especially in our relationships as well. But at a time like this, when we're dealing with coronavirus, we're in the lockdown, we don't have schools open, right? So we're trying to homeschool a little bit as well as just keep our kids occupied, be good parents and step parents, still keep a household running, still keep our relationship intact. And if we're lucky enough to be carrying on with business, that we're still doing that as well. It's a lot to throw at anybody, but anybody who is already thinking that they're not good enough, and that they are going to be found out, that somebody's going to find a better person to be a partner with, or they're going to find out that they're going to win, worst mother of the year award, or, anything like that goes on in our heads, which happens to all of us at different times. But when it is a continual type of thing, and when it is really running the show, it causes so much anxiety, right? Anxiety that, quite frankly, we don't deserve to have, and we can't really afford to have, right? Whether we are running our own businesses or whether we are working for corporations, whether we're stay-at-home parents or step-parents, it doesn't matter what the scenario is. We can't afford to be beating ourselves up like that, and we don't deserve it. So getting over imposter syndrome, of course, is not a, one solution for everyone, nor is any of my tips for coping with anxiety, right? Each person is unique. Your situation is unique. So I'm just going to outline some things that I know work for me, because I also dealt with imposter syndrome, and what I know has worked for clients, and then what I know works on basic research and in, psychology and whatnot. So I'm using my experience as NLP practitioner, as well as all of my years recovering from 10 years of child abuse and actually being an imposter syndrome sufferer as well. And all of those combined to make these videos to help you. So please feel free to tweak any of the tips that I give you over this series and make them work for you. Because again, you are your own person with your own experiences. The first tip that I would like to give today is to reframe the way that you look at the term failure. So failure seems to be a very negative word, right? You definitely don't think of, joyful celebration when you think about failing something. So I'm going to encourage you to start looking at it differently and just eliminate that word from your vocabulary altogether. Catch yourself when you start saying, I'm failing at this, or I'm such a failure, or I've failed, or however you're using it. Catch yourself when you do, and see if you can shift the narrative. See if you can look at this idea of something not working out the way that you had planned, as rather than it being a failure, it being some sort of opportunity. So just turning the tables on it that little bit to say, perhaps what I was trying to accomplish wasn't really what was needed at this particular moment, or wasn't what was the most important. And things veering off into this direction here that I wasn't planning for actually is a really good thing. It allows me to get clear or whatever, right? So let's look at a couple of examples for this, right? You're trying to homeschool your kids and run your business and keep your relationship alive and keep the house together so it doesn't look like there's some sort of bug infestation during this whole coronavirus, right? And you have a day planned, you've got a schedule because we are several weeks into lockdown now. So you've got a schedule of, okay, we get up, we've got this routine, we do a little bit of schoolwork, and then I go and do my work, and then we go and do a little bit more schoolwork, whatever you have. And let's say the kids are bonkers today, right? They are not doing it. There is no way that you are going to get through those math drills or whatever it is that you are looking at doing. And instead, you end up spending the bulk of the day outside, maybe going through your freezer and picking out some ice creams. And, you end up having a day that's more reminiscent of a typical Saturday or Sunday than a work day. And you're beating yourself up about that, right? Because you know that Sally on Instagram is posting pictures of her family sitting there doing all their schoolwork diligently for 6 hours straight, right? Or, Dylan on Twitter is bragging about how fantastic his kids are. And he decided he was going to make up a pop quiz and gave that out this morning, and they all passed with flying colors, whatever, right? Yours didn't work out that way. Your kids were having their own moment because they're unique people as well. And this is what they needed. And instead of looking at this as you failed as a, homeschooling parent thrown into this with coronavirus, who's not a trained teacher and should never be put in a position of having to try to do all of these things at once. Instead of looking at it as failure, catch yourself, acknowledge the narrative that's starting to run through your mind, and then just stop and ask yourself nicely, with some kindness and some love, is it possible that this was actually a good thing? Does it have to be a bad thing that it didn't work out the way that you had planned it? Yeah, it can be frustrating and whatnot, but were the kids able to learn resiliency and adaptation? Did the kids learn through play? Did they enjoy just spending time with you? Right? There's all kinds of ways that our kids learn, right? There's all kinds of ways that we learn, and takeaways that we get from life, that it doesn't have to be the exact structured way that we had planned it to be. And same thing if you're looking at, say you are self-employed and you are trying to launch something that's going to help people during coronavirus, and you're finding that it's kind of stalling in the water. That doesn't mean that it's failing. Maybe this is an opportunity to start asking some questions from your audience, from your clients, from your followers. Maybe there's just a little thing that's missing in the offer you're trying to give that's just not resonating with people. And rather than ditching the entire thing, maybe it's just a teeny little tweak that if you just get the opinion of some other people, that you could actually make that tweak and help so many people, right? So start eliminating that word failure and instead replace it with opportunity or redirection. If opportunity is too much for you, then just look at it as possible redirection, right? Perhaps there's just a slightly different way I'm supposed to look at this. I hope that this helps. I will see you tomorrow with another tip for beating imposter syndrome. Stay safe and stay healthy.